Welcome to the Fully Mindful, where we explore what it means to live with intention, creativity, authenticity, and connection. I'm your host, Melissa Chareau, mindfulness and breathwork facilitator, neurodivergent lawyer and coach, and fellow human navigating this wild and beautiful ride we call life. On this podcast, we dive deep with interviews featuring inspiring guests, share solo mini episodes packed with guided mindfulness practices to help you center and thrive, and mix things up with tangents and sidebars, where my friend and fellow podcaster Debbie Harrell from the New World Normal joins me for some real, random, and meaningful conversations. So if you're ready to pause, reflect, and expand, you're in the right place. Let's get fully mindful. Hey everybody, it's Melissa with the Fully Mindful, and I'm so excited for you to listen into my conversation with Eileen Joy, host of Moms Who Money, a mom who nearly lost everything only to find her way into financial freedom and a passion for making money approachable and even fun for mothers and their kids by shifting mindset and practices to live life fully and purposefully and joyfully. She's a coach, a speaker, and an incredible resource for moms and dads too, and for all things money. What I love about our conversation is not only Eileen's practical advice that we can all take right now, but her philosophy and deep understanding that money is energy, and we can change our relationship to it so we don't have to be afraid or anxious, but instead use money for our good. Enjoy this fun conversation about how Eileen Joy found her purpose. Hey everybody, this is Melissa with the Fully Mindful, and excited to be here today with Eileen Joy. And I can't wait for her to tell her story and all the amazing things that she does. But you're going to find out that she is a money mindset coach. I think I'm getting that right, amongst other amazing things, and being a mom who works and a mom who's been successful. So welcome, Eileen.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for having me. I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. So tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis for a living. What do you do?
Well, I am a money and mindset coach for moms, mompreneurs, and their kids.
Love that. So what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, basically, I work with moms, and I work one-on-one with moms, and we just dive into money mindset. We dive into their money, and we figure out what's going on. Most moms are afraid of money. Some moms that are married have their husbands take care of the money. Some moms that are single, like me, just are afraid of their money and they just ignore it. And then there's moms that just have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and they think they're doing the best that they can. And meanwhile, they're up to debt in their eyeballs, So I always say that personal finance is personal, and there is no one way to do personal finance because everyone's situation is totally different.
100%, right?
Yeah. I mean, we all make this different amount of money. We bring in a different amount of money. We have different expenses, different lifestyle, different family dynamic, and it goes on and on and on. So,
right. And different choices that we want to make, different dreams that we have, different things
exactly.
that we can do. And I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, money was taboo. Like we didn't have any, number one. So that's probably why we didn't talk about it, but it was certainly taboo. And I suspect I was not alone in the world with that.
No, it's interesting because money, sex, and religion are the big three. Those are the three topics that are taboo, in air quotes. They're the taboo subjects that no one talks about, or it's not proper to talk about these things, And it's interesting because I always start with money mindset because of this, because people don't talk about it, because people are afraid of it, or whatever the reason is. And that all starts when we're little. It starts like our money mindset starts from the time that we're age 0 all the way to 7. And that's when we get programmed in our environment from our parents, from our grandparents, from the people around us, just from everything that we're surrounded by. And we take in those messages and it gets stuck in our subconscious.
Mhm.
And then from there, that's how we end up operating our lives. We just operate from our subconscious and we don't realize what we're doing. We're just following the herd, right? So our money story starts with our parents. Their money story started with their parents, your grandparents, right? And then their parents and their parents and their parents. And it just goes generational back, 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 back. And the money stories just keep getting passed forward. And so what happens is a pattern is created. And that's how people just end up operating.
Mhm.
And so even recently, my son and I were at the store and he said to me, because we talk about money all the time. We talk about money like the weather. Like it's just so normal between us that it's like, hey, it's sunny out. Hey, what's up with your money? You know, it's really nothing. And
I love that. Hey, what's up
so,
with your money?
yeah, it's just the way it is with us. You know, I've normalized it so much in my house that it's like a meaningless thing. It's not, it doesn't mean anything to him. It doesn't, there's no fear, you know, there's no anxiety. There's no ill feelings toward money. And so we're just in the store and we're talking and he just randomly said to me, hey, mommy, people with money are greedy, right? And I looked at him and I said, those words have never left my lips. Where did you hear that? And my son is 10. And he said, on a cartoon.
Mm.
And I found that so fascinating because he heard someone else's money story come through on a cartoon. So you see, it's just in the environment. It's in everything. It's everywhere.
Right. I was going to say culturally, I mean, depending on what you're exposed to, you could
Mhm.
easily glom on to somebody's money story. And I don't know what your money story was, and I'd like to get into that in a little bit because I'm assuming you didn't grow up thinking, I think I'm going to be a money mindset coach. Am I right?
Never. Not in a million years.
I mean, my money story growing up, my mother, single mom, did the best that she could, working nurse. But I mean, we were dirt poor, and that was the money story. I mean, we used to have to look for, at one point in our lives, I mean, we made fun out of it. My mother made fun out of it the best that she could. But like, we had to go looking around at like 5 o'clock in the morning where to put our trash because we couldn't afford trash service. I mean, like, that was our money story. And like, her parents' money story was similar. They were first generation Americans. They'd come over from Poland to Ellis Island, that sort of thing. And, it just was scarcity, right? And so we just didn't talk about it because it was uncomfortable. It was scary. And like I said earlier, I just don't think that that was, an uncommon story. I don't know. Was that sort of a story that you lived with, or did you have a different story growing up?
My story was very different. We don't learn about money in school.
Mm.
We just don't. So we learned it from our parents, right? So what I learned from my parents is that my mom was a spender and my dad, he had a gambling addiction. So the money was always being spent in some way. It was just gone all the time, gone out the window.
So you had the same problem, no money, but just a
Just
different
different
reason.
circle. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, they both had great jobs. They both made great money. And they were always wondering, where's the money going? Well, hello. If you spend it all, you're not going to have it. Right.
Right.
So that's how I grew up. I grew up with my mom just basically spending it all using her credit cards. And then my dad going out and betting on horses or going to a casino or whatever. And I still remember I was 5 years old and my dad took me to this place called OTB. It was off track betting. It was like a store. They were all over Long Island. I don't think they're there anymore, but you could go to this place and it was kind of like a bar and they had TVs set up everywhere. There was, I just remember the smell of the smoke and the cigars. It was disgusting. And the guys screaming at the TVs, like at the horses and, the betting. And I was always so scared when we went there, and I would hide under the tables, like wait until we could leave. And still to this day, I have no idea why he took me there, you know, but
Probably the same reason my dad took me to the VA bar. It's just what they were doing.
who knows? Maybe it was back in the day, who knows? But, and so I have these vivid memories of just the fighting in my house. My parents were always screaming at each other about money, because it was just never there. They were each blaming the other. And so my sister and I got the messages of money is bad. Money causes fights. Don't talk about money because it causes fights. And we actually at one point were begging them to just get divorced at one point because we just couldn't stand it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrible. So I became a spender. I just naturally became a spender because that's how I learned how to do money. Just spend it.
Right. You have it, spend it.
Yeah.
Don't
As soon as you
track
get
it.
it goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it's for, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the message that you grew up with. And so, when you entered into your adult life, you became a spender yourself. And how, if at all, did it impact your relationship? You said you have a child, so at one point you were married. How
Mhm.
did it impact your marriage?
Well, I also married a spender
Mm.
that we both ended up in bankruptcy and ultimately divorce. And after my divorce, I was left with $347 to my name. I had
Wow.
to sell my house to pay for my divorce. I had to get a new job because at the time I was working with my sister-in-law during my divorce, and she was trying to make my life miserable and succeeded. So I said, time to move on. And so then at the same time, my son and I got into a really bad car accident that totaled my car, and we ended up in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
So all at the same time, I had to get a new house, a new job, and a new car. And at the aftermath of this bankruptcy, and then getting this check in the mail after my divorce was final from my attorney's office for $347 after the sale of my home, where I would have got tens of thousands of dollars that they just took.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everybody, this is Melissa with the Fully Mindful. It's the new year, and I bet you're feeling the need to unlock your full potential and embrace empowerment, or maybe something completely different. Well, I'm excited to offer a new program with one-on-one breathwork and coaching sessions. We'll embark on a truly transformative journey of self-discovery, combining conscious, connected breathwork and embodiment coaching, and more. So contact me, Melissa at the Fully Mindful, for your transformative session today. Wow, you got $347 out of the sale of your house.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. And so I'm sure that caused a lot of fear.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a very scary time, hitting rock bottom. I got the check, and basically I fell to the ground and just started sobbing, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Just over and over and over. What am I going to do? And finally I just said, well, I got to do something, figure this out. I can't just sit here and not do anything.
Well, and
So,
how old was your son at the time?
At the time he was 5.
Yeah. So here you have this young child. I'm assuming you had at least, did you have full custody or at least a joint custody?
No, joint.
Joint. So, you're responsible for him and you have no money. It sounds like your ex-husband was in the same boat. And so what did you do?
Well, I made it my mission to learn everything that I possibly could about money, because
How did you do that?
I did everything that I could. I started reading. I know I've read over 200 books. And there's more than that, because I have some that I have here. I have the list of all the books that I have in my cart on Amazon that I got at the library instead of buying them on Amazon. And then books that I've listened to, I kept track of basically everything that I've read. And I hired help. I listened to podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast. And most of the podcasts I was listening to were over my head, and I really didn't understand what they were talking about. And it made it more confusing for me. And so I was
Mm.
trying to find podcasts that I could resonate with for, money for dummies, I was just really, I
Well,
even
you
read
weren't
that
a dummy with that.
book.
Yeah.
I have the Money for Dummies book. But, you know, I just did whatever I could to make it work for me and my particular situation. And it worked. It was amazing. In a very short amount of time, I was able to completely turn everything around. I was able to fully fund my emergency fund. I was completely debt free. I paid off my 6-year car loan in 3 years. And now I'm on track to retire early,
Wow.
all while teaching my son the same thing. I was teaching him everything about money at the same time. So he now knows more about money than most adults.
And he's like, what, 10? I
He's
think
10.
Yeah. And I mean, and I love how you talk with your son as if it's not a big deal. Like
Mhm.
it's just, part of the conversation, like the weather would be, or checking in about what did you do today, and treating money like what it is, just another form of energy. And I think you talk
Exactly.
about that a little bit,
Mhm.
right? Like it's just a form of energy.
Yeah, money is energy. All money is an exchange of goods and services. At the end of the day, that's all it is. Someone one day made up money, the concept of money, right? Like someone made up the concept of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's all it is. It's just a made up thing, right? So people at the very beginnings used cattle and chickens and all these things to barter, right? That they used as money. And then it evolved over time into what it is now, the paper and the coins and the plastic, or the air. I call it air because most people don't even use the paper and the coins anymore. They use the plastic card, which is essentially air.
Right. Or you tap something, or you type something
Right.
into the computer or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
digital.
Yeah. And people aren't paying attention to what they're spending because they're just
Oh,
swiping the card, swiping the card, swiping the card, and not paying attention. And then all of a sudden you get this bill and you're like, uh-oh, spent too much. What am I going to do? Oh, well. And then you're paying 15%, 25%, whatever percent interest on that on your credit card like it's nothing.
right.
Meanwhile,
But
you could be saving that money.
but it's all in the air, like you said. So it
Yeah.
doesn't hit people the way
It's
that
meaningless.
that it would if you had to like give 5 chickens away to get
Mhm.
something in return, right?
Yeah, it's become intangible. It's not tangible anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have this thing with my son where Thursday is payday and he gets an allowance every single Thursday. And I give him both. I give him cash and I give him digital money. So he has his own debit card, which there's a company called Greenlight, and it's an account for kids. There's a whole bunch of them. We chose to use Greenlight. You can just Google them. There's Farm Zoo or Fam Zoo and all kinds of other ones. Go Henry. But they're all essentially the same. They all do the same thing. And so what it is, it's an FDIC insured bank account for kids. And attached to it is this debit card that also connects like a credit card. And within that, you can attach their chores to it on the app. And then you can also allocate money to their goals. So I help him with the 4 buckets and I teach the 4 buckets, and I teach money like I teach my son. So I teach money to adults like I'm teaching to a child. So I make it so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes fun because it's easy,
Right.
and people have like this aha moment, like, oh, really? That's it? Yeah,
So
that's it.
what are the 4 buckets?
So the 4 buckets are simply saving, investing, giving, and then spending. So as soon as we get paid, what most people do is pay their bills. And then after that, they have this tiny little bit left. And then they're like, okay, I have this little bit. I'll have enough maybe for groceries, some gas, maybe a fun night out at the movies or something, or going out to eat. And then after that, there's more months left at the end of the money. And that's when people start using their credit cards to finish out the month.
Right.
And this is how debt slowly begins.
Right. It's like the same as weight gain, right?
Yes.
People don't usually gain like 100 pounds overnight. In fact, that's probably impossible, right? But it's a slow thing that happens over time. And that's why it can be so insidious, is that, you just start eating, one cookie extra every day. Well, after a year, guess what? It adds
Hmm.
up. It's the same thing as what you're saying.
Exactly. And the mindset, I always talk about this because I also was a very overweight child and I lost 130 pounds 20 years ago. I went from a size 22 to a 2.
Okay.
And it's the same mindset. So I compare all the time weight loss and money because women understands weight loss, right? We all get
Yes.
it. Right?
It's hard, and for men, they just need to think about eating better and they lose weight. But
I
yes,
know.
that's a story for another day.
They sneeze and lose 10 pounds.
Yeah. Lucky them.
Right? Right? Well, they
Lucky
sweat it
them.
out.
We have to work a little harder, be a little
A
more
little bit.
intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I always say talking about money is like exercise. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
I like that.
Right? And it's true. And it's really the same mindset. Like we know what to do to lose weight. We know what to do.
Mhm.
We know the strategy, right? So why don't we do it? There's one particular reason that always comes up: deprivation. Everyone feels like they're going to be deprived of the chocolate cake or the cheeseburger or the fries or
Right.
whatever, right? And no one really no one really teaches you either, unless you hire someone to really help you, like a nutritionist or a dietitian, or to really explain to you what's good for your body, right? And same thing with money. We don't learn about that. They don't even teach any of that in school. They don't teach about health in school. Like they have one little health class that they don't even really teach any of that, you know? And
Right.
it's another thing you learn from your parents. So it's the same
100%.
mindset. It just goes back and
Mhm.
forth, back and forth. And so the more that you dive into something, the easier it becomes, right? Whether it's weight loss or money. So when I teach my son, we sit down every single Thursday, and we have a money date. I give him his allowance and we go through his money and we say, okay, this is how much is going into spending. This is how much is going into savings. This is how much is going into giving. And he has a charity that he loves that he donates to all the time. And then this is how much is going into investing. And then I also started what I call a kid 401k for
Mhm.
him.
Tell
And
us about that. What's that
so
about?
I explained to him how a 401k works so that when he gets a job, so I've showed him the paychecks and how paychecks work. This is
Mhm.
a deduction, this is taxes, this is the contribution to the 401k. So he doesn't completely understand the concepts yet completely because he doesn't live it, you know? So I created something that he can live and understand at a very simplistic level. So every payday for him on Thursday, when I give him his money, the Bank of Mom contributes to his 401k for him as the mom match.
You do
So
compound interest on the mom match?
yes, he does get
Wow.
interest. I also give him interest, and also Greenlight gives him interest. He gets 1%
Great.
interest from Greenlight as well. So we have his goals. So part of his goals in his kid 401k, we're using that to save up to buy a car. So he's saving up now. He started 2 years ago. And so he's saving up now to buy a car when he turns 18.
I love that. I was just reading, I don't know if you know who Susan David is, but she's a renowned psychologist. I think she's from Harvard, and she has a book called Emotional Agility. Very, very good book to read. And one of the things she talks about was a study that was done where they had young people. They weren't necessarily kids, but young persons, 18 to 24, I think. And they had them divide into three different groups. Of course, the control group, who did nothing different, and then the second group that did something, and then the third group that did something else. And the second and third groups, the second group wrote a letter to themselves in 3 months. This is what's important to me right now. And in 3 months, I sure hope you're doing, A, B, and C. And then they had the third group do the same thing, only 10 or 20 years down the road, like really envisioning themselves. And then they asked them to choose, I think I'm getting this right, uh, different things that they could do that were available to them that were totally illegal and bad, right? And what they found was that the first group, the control group, they had a certain percentage of people who went ahead and chose the bad thing. The second group chose slightly less of the bad things. And the third group, who envisioned who they were going to be in the future, didn't make those choices at all, or far fewer choices, significantly fewer choices. So I love this idea of sitting down with our children or even ourselves and envisioning that future self of, and what they found is they also tracked these people, I believe, and that they found is that they made fewer bad choices in general over a period of time. Less addiction, less crime, less divorce, less relationship problems, less everything, right? Because they could see themselves as this future self. So now your son is seeing himself as not only the kind of kid who's responsible enough to save money, but who's going to be driving around some cool, car that, and he really sees himself in the future that way. I just love that. Sorry for the aside. I just was like, I want to really affirm what you're doing is so cool. And there appears to be science behind this.
There is. There really is. I mean, there's the strategy mixed with the woo is science, because the woo actually, all the spiritual has science back behind it. It's amazing. And so I always mix the energetics with the strategy, like
right.
The energetics of money, like we started talking about earlier. So most people put money on a pedestal, that it's so far out of reach. And what it comes back to is your sense of self-worth and your deserving. And most people that come from the fear and the lack and the scarcity have that mindset of, no, it's for someone else. It's not for me. And then once you bring the energy into it and you really understand that money really is just energy, that's all it is. And anyone can have it. It's right there in front of you. You just need to know a few key concepts to call it in.
So what are some of those key concepts to call it in? I mean, obviously, shifting the mindset is huge. Like that's fundamental. You can't have probably all the things that you're saying are possible without that fundamental shift. And I'm assuming it probably takes some work, you probably help people come to whatever realization that they need to about what their story is and how that's affected them. And then it's like, we don't just stay stuck in the story, right?
Right.
The whole point is understanding it so you can move on, right? And release that energy. And so then they can get to the goodies, where they're not afraid of money. And, money is just something that is available to them if they understand a little bit about how to do things. So like, what would you say, I don't know what your top 5 things are, or 3 things, or whatever they might be. What do you think are really just fundamental things that if people could get, in addition to the mindset, of course, which is no easy task, but assuming they can get the mindset, like what do they need to understand?
Well, like you said, mindset is first. Have you ever seen the show My 600-Pound Life?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
I've only seen a few episodes, but what I got from the show is that I always do this with weight loss because it's so easy to understand. So what happens is everyone knows what to do to lose weight, right? We all know the strategy. We know what to do. So the people go on the show and they meet with their dietitian and they're given the plan. Here's what you do. Now go do it. And then they meet again a week later. Nothing. Didn't do a thing. Didn't do it. Or maybe a little bit, not really into it. They go over the plan again. They send them on their merry way. They come back again the next week. Not much has changed. And then they're like, we really need to send you to therapy. And the people are completely resistant. every single time they don't want to go, don't want to go, don't want to go because they don't want to face the pain that they're going to feel in therapy, right? And so the same thing keeps going over the same pattern, right? Strategy, here it is, go home, nothing, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, these people start going to therapy and bam, that's when the shifts start happening because they're moving the energy, they're moving the pain, they're getting it out, they're getting rid of all of the things, right? And so that's why working with someone on that and someone who understands where they're coming from can then shift them to the next step, which is awareness. And that's the hugest, biggest step that every single person that I've ever worked with was always surprised, amazed, confused. It's so interesting. All you need to do is look at your money. Just look at it. Pay attention to it. Right? Just look at your computer, open up your bank account, look at how much is coming in, look at how much is going out. Pay attention, right? Instead of just swiping and hoping for the best, right? And this is where you can easily see where your money's going.
Right, just that simple task of actually paying attention. But like you said, you have to shift the mindset to the point where you can pay attention. And it's so important. You mentioned, and I want to underscore this for people, how important it is to work with someone. And I think, we all think we should somehow, even though none of us are taught any of this, right? We somehow should intuitively know how to do this. Like, I mean, if I ask my kid who's 14 and I'll ask her, say something about money, for instance, she's like, I don't know, how would I know? And it's like, right, exactly. How would you know? Unless I'm teaching you or unless you're learning in school. And it's the same thing. And I think what's really important is to find someone to work with who you can identify with. And, the one thing I love about coaching, I'm just going to talk you up here for a little bit, and the practice of coaching is that, like, with you have the credibility of not only your stuff, but you've been through it. You actually lived it. So you're not somebody who like went to school, got a degree in finance, and have always been wealthy and done well, right? This is not your story, and great for them. And I'm not saying that those people don't have something to say, but for someone like me, for instance, to really feel like I could be comfortable and really telling you like my down deep secrets and how I feel about money, I'd want to know that you've been there. And same thing with weight. I would want to know that you've had the same struggle that I have, but you found a way out and you have expertise. Like double the win is you have the expertise and you have the personal experience. And I think that's so incredible. What an incredible combination. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you need that help from somebody before you can get to the awareness. But then you were getting to the juicy part, awareness, like pay attention, like actually look at your money, see what it's doing.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, that's really step number one. And I'll tell you, when I first started learning about money, I really was no expert. I was just learning. So I really didn't understand the how yet, while I was learning. So I was just kind of making it up as I was going along, trying to figure it out along the way. And I was just using a simple spreadsheet that I made for myself just to track what I was spending because I really wanted to pay attention to what I was doing. And it was so interesting because I was tracking my money, but I was still spending it. Right. And I didn't.
Sure, it's like a food diary. I could write all the things and I'm like, wait, why am I still eating, eight hamburgers a day? I mean, I don't, but like, why is that still happening? I'm writing it down because, well, the writing it down is a good first step, but
yes. Which is why that's really step one for people is just the awareness and paying attention to it and tracking it and just watching it and without even really making any changes. It's just to notice, notice your patterns, right? And even just going back to the patterns of your money patterns of how you are and figuring out Are you a saver? Are you a spender? Are you a risk taker? Do you worry about money? I call them money warriors,
Mhm.
but my accent, sometimes people don't understand what I'm saying.
Well, I do, but I'm originally from Philadelphia, so I get
I know. So, Siri doesn't understand what I say sometimes.
Oh, I know.
But, so I
Well,
always ask. Hmm?
yeah, so I mean, it's fascinating that this idea, and I want to connect it to, and it because my podcast and my fascination is with mindfulness, of course, and this is really akin to mindfulness. It's noticing. There's no judgment.
Hmm.
It's just noticing what you're doing and what kind
Yeah.
of person you are. And there's no judgment like, oh, it's bad I'm a spender, or it's bad that I'm a risk taker, it's bad that I'm a warrior. No, these are just the way that you are, and you're just noticing it. And it's important information to notice,
Hmm.
become aware.
And and that's why I call it awareness. Just be aware. And there is no judgment. So many women come to me with embarrassment and shame and guilt and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I get it. I was there. I felt it too. I had my spreadsheet that I created just to watch my money. And then I realized, because I made it so that it had formulas on it so I can see what was left over at the end of them. And it was always red. I always overspent every month. And then I was just watching this and saying to myself, this is not okay. you know, how do I change this?
Right.
And then so along the way, through my learning and all of my exploration with money and learning how to simplify it, it became so easy. And it was all through just starting with that awareness. And that's really the key piece, besides the mindset, obviously the mindset. But the mindset, I have to say this, your mindset will be something you will always be working on. You don't fix it and that's it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way the brain works, right? So every single time that we level up, our fears kick in again,
Sure.
right? Whether it be with money or not, it doesn't matter. It could be fear of, heights or whatever. Like you climb a little mountain and then you said, okay, that was easy. Okay, next, and you start to climb another one and you freak out. It's the same concept of
Right.
just the way the brain works. So I just want to put that out there. So the mindset piece will always be something that needs to be worked on, but just the initial part of getting over that huge, huge fear is key.
Right. I think that's really important that you said, and just to underscore it, that, and I mean that's the way it is with everything in life, right? Like you said, it's not just money; it's everything. So whenever we conquer a fear or a challenge, it doesn't mean we're never going to face that fear or that challenge again. It just may come in a different form, like you said, each time we level up, and that's so important. And so that we're not surprised,
Mhm.
and we're prepared. It won't be ever like the first time, but it will be there, and then we'll have the tools that, and hopefully the support, where we can continue to deal with that mindset.
Yeah. And I've noticed it too with the women that I work with, because a lot of them come with no savings account at all or very little savings. And once that savings account starts to get full, they get scared. The fear pops in again,
Mm.
because now they have the money and they're scared of it. And it's just sitting there, not doing anything. It's just, hello, money sitting in your account, but it's the
Right.
fear, you
Mhm.
know, and it's not anything to sneeze at, it's not anything to, people just get so worked up about it. And so what I do is I just work through it with them,
Right.
and we work through the steps, we get through it. The awareness piece comes back in, and we work through it step by step by step by step by step, so that we break those generational patterns,
Mhm.
because the generational pattern has to stop with you. Now that you've heard this, you can't unhear it,
Right.
right? So now you are aware and being mindful of the fact that you are living a generational money pattern. You're living a generational weight pattern, maybe, like, or all
Mhm.
different patterns that you've learned over the years. And all the choices that we've made up to this date are the culmination of our life, right? So we now
Mhm.
have a choice to make or a decision and say, you know what? Today's the day. Today is the day of the first day of the rest of my life. And I'm going to choose to go all in on myself. And I'm going to invest in myself. And that's what I chose to do. I chose to invest in myself so that I can help myself and my son. And I stopped that pattern in its tracks. And now it is my responsibility to teach my son, because no one else is going to teach him. And if they do, it's not the right way. So that is really the whole thing. It's really just stopping that generational pattern in its tracks, going all in on yourself, doing what you can to help yourself first and then your family, so that these generational patterns don't continue. The generational patterns are now changed. And so now you will leave a legacy for your family instead.
I love that, it's just a pattern interrupter and you get to be the one who's responsible for doing it. And that's so empowering in and of itself, that you're like the buck, no pun intended, the buck stops here. And, and then I get to be responsible for how this looks in my family going forward. And it's really empowering. And I imagine it was really empowering for you. And perhaps that's why it became your purpose in life to not only help yourself and your son, but to start helping other moms. And you also told me separately that you do help some men too from time to time, because men have these issues too, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you have money, you need help, really.
Yeah. And they too grew up with these generational patterns, and and also have their own, probably, I'm assuming, these massive pressures on what money is supposed to be, how they're supposed to be responsible. They're the ones who are, the providers, et cetera, et cetera. And so I imagine that's a whole different money mindset that you have to work on shifting when you work with men.
Yeah, because
all
most
men
women
are going to be that way, and all women are going to be the other way. But yeah,
no, but as typically, most women are told to play small, right, and to let the man handle it. As we're growing up, those are the messages we hear, and the men hear, you need to provide. All the responsibilities on you. So it's two totally different mindsets and two totally separate fears.
Right.
Because that's scary to say, oh no, I'm responsible. It's all on my shoulders. So, and then for the women, it's like, well, he better provide for me because I can't do it, because I'm not supposed to, because I was told that they're supposed to do it, and now in my case, I'm a single mom, so I do everything. Right. There, all the responsibilities on me. So what you were saying earlier is that, you weren't born to be a money coach, right? So what happened was after like everything just shifted for me. I went from rock bottom to thriving in like really short amount of time. And all of my friends were asking me, what did you do? How did you do this? This is amazing. And I have a lot of mom friends and single mom friends and married friends, and I had people just coming to me asking me for help. And so I was just helping them. And then after a while, people would just say, you need to do this. Like, this is something you need to do. And I said, what do you mean I need to do that? You need to teach people. This is amazing. So then I reached out to a few friends of mine that I knew and asked if they would want my help. And they were like, hell yeah, And so organically, I just became a money coach for moms. And so even my therapist at the time, I'm still in therapy. I highly recommend everyone being in therapy all the time. Yes. But I was talking to my therapist about this back when, and I was like, maybe I should create a course or something. And she's like, well, why not? And then my son, who's my number one fan, was like, why not, mommy? Do it. You need to do this. Everyone needs you, and so my son, he even says, mommy, after you're gone, I'm going to take over your business and I'm just going to do this and I'm going to teach moms and I'll teach dads. And he's just awesome.
I think that's so cool. And, I'd love to hear if you have, a story of anyone, like, is there anyone who comes to mind that like the transformation was really huge?
Yeah. So this one woman, I've been working with her for 2 years, and she started out with nothing. She was divorced. She had 2 kids, and she didn't really work. She had a part-time job. And then all of a sudden, bam, divorce. Now she needs to provide. So she ended up moving back in with her mom, with her kids. And so I started working with her. I introduced her to her credit report, which she had never looked at before, and showing her how to track her money and doing all the things.
Right.
And just as an aside, I used to be a mortgage underwriter. I was also a real estate consultant, did insurance. My degree is in education. So I know all the things.
Right, right.
And
And I
so I
love
went through,
how you say you like introduced her as like here you know whatever her name is
Mhm.
Marie just for Marie meet TransUnion
Right,
meet
right, the big three. Yeah.
Equifax whatever yeah
Yeah,
love it.
she'd never looked at her credit report, not once. And
Wow.
so we found all these discrepancies. I showed her how to read it, how to fix it. She had to make some phone calls and do some things. We almost immediately, her score went up 100 points just from that. And then getting her some good credit and showing her how to establish credit properly and doing all of those things, and how you pay your bill off every month and you don't charge everything, and and you just do a little bit, a little bit, establish credit, do all the things, showing her what to do for her kids and all of that, and how to save money and all. I helped her open a Roth IRA. I helped her, all the different things, right? Showing her how to invest. And so after all this time, she was then able to buy her first house
Wow. All on her own.
all on her own.
That's so huge.
Yeah. And she never in a million years ever would have thought that this would be her life. She thought she was going to be just living with her mom forever.
Wow, that's such a wonderful story. And I'm sure not the only one. I'm
No.
sure, I mean, your own story is that story as well. And it sounds like her story was too. I I could probably sit here and talk forever with you about money
No, I could talk about money
um,
for hours.
and I know that and I have so many questions. But I know that you have a podcast.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about that and the kinds of things that you talk about on it.
So my podcast is called Moms Who Money, and
Moms and money. Love
Moms
it.
Who Money. And I also, my website is also Moms Who Money.
Mhm.
So what I do on my podcast, I do very short episodes for busy moms. So each episode is just one quick little topic, maybe 15, 20 minutes max. And it's just quick, quick, quick. I get right to the point. I teach you a concept, I give you tips, and I talk about mom life, money mindset, spirituality, all of it, just everything, all encompassed with the money and the energy.
I love it, and I'll just tell my listeners here. I've listened to a couple, and the substance is there. It's not like, oh, just listen to me talk about, money and hire me. No, there's like legit stuff in every single episode. There's at least one, probably more, legit pearls of how to deal with your money and how to look at money. And I love that. And my favorite one is the one where you interview your son because it's so great to hear a kid of such a young age talk so intelligently and so like nonchalantly about money. Like, yeah, I know about money, and this is what we do. And I love that he has a charity that he's dedicated to. That's part of what you teach is giving as well. That's we don't just hold on to all of our money. What's your philosophy about charity or giving or donating money?
We can use money for good. Money is not evil,
Mm.
right? Everyone's money story is money is evil. People with money are greedy, rich people are snobby, all these things, right? But money can be used for such good. And
Mm.
even if you just donate a tiny little bit every single month or even once a year, just put your money towards something fabulous. My son, he is so big on saving the earth and so big on it. And we do a lot with recycling and water and so many things, planting trees, all the
Mhm.
things. There's a local garden nearby. We have a little spot. He just loves talking about saving the earth. And he's one of his favorite places here is the Science Museum. And we go to the Science Museum all the time. We've been members ever since he was like 3 years old. And we go at least once or twice a month. And it was really interesting. We went on a Friday night. They were open late on a Friday night. They were doing something special. They usually close at 5 p.m. and they were open until I think 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And they had a special guest who was doing a lecture. This very, very gray old man in this really funky suit doing a lecture on a Friday night. And my son's like, I want to go.
I love that.
And I said, okay. So we listened to his lecture, and it was all about conserving water and keeping clean water and helping people in need when they are in a natural disaster. And like he said that this company that he formed with him and his wife, it's called the Global Water Center, and they're based in Charleston, South Carolina. And he goes around the world helping people with their water crisis. And so he helps little villages all around the world that don't have plumbing and all of these things to bring clean water to them so that they don't drink the disease infested waters. They help people who are in natural disasters like typhoons and all these things, wipe out their village and they have no water. And so my son was just fascinated by this. And so now that's all he wants. He wants to work for them, and he donates all his money to them, and he wants to do whatever he can to help with the water.
I love that. I'm a fellow water lover, and I donate every month to a similar organization called Charity Water, and it's very similar.
Heard of that one? Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool, and they've been really good at getting a lot of people involved in donating and feeling a part of it. And their whole thing, similarly, is you don't have to donate, thousands of dollars. Although if you do, wonderful, it can make a huge impact. But you can donate even small amounts, and that makes a huge difference, because if you get a lot of people donating a small amounts, it turns out to be a lot of money. And I love this idea of money being something that can be used for good, that it isn't just these stories that we've grown up sort of telling ourselves. I mean, even rich people will tell themselves these stories, right? I'm sure you've run into them where even the very wealthy will say, and they'll feel guilty about it, and like a lot of shoulds and all of this stuff. But money is just energy. And so why not use the energy for good? Yeah,
exactly.
Well, as we're sort of winding things up, like, what do you want to make sure people know about money that you haven't already said, or that you want to make sure that you emphasize?
There's so many things. Well, let's see. What most people need to realize is that whatever you're thinking, however you're feeling about money, is just a story that you're telling yourself. That's really all it is. And that money is not hard. It is not hard at all. It's just a story you're telling yourself. So just go all in on yourself and invest in yourself and do what you need to do for you and your family to break those patterns now, so that you can leave a legacy going forward.
Gosh, I love that. The legacy. Well, now for some fun questions, because I just like doing this from time to time. So here we go. Do you have a song or maybe a musician that really impacted you, or, when I was a teenager, I would have said, changed my life, in that very teenagery way? Anything for you? Any favorite song, musician?
Well, back in the day, I used to listen to metal.
Love it.
I would listen to Metallica and 80s hair metal and Bon Jovi and all the things. And I would go to all the concerts. I wouldn't say they changed my life, but music definitely has impacted me in a big way. And that's another form of energy that I love. And even to this day, I meditate every day. I meditate twice a day, and in the morning and at night. And I listen to specific types of music that I could feel the energy going through my body. and it grounds me and it makes me feel amazing. And my son's the same way. He just loves music, loves it so much. And we have a party rocker speaker that has like music,
Yeah.
the lights that, bounce to the sound of the music. And he puts it on every day and we have dance parties inside.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't know if you watch the show Stranger Things. It's probably not quite yet appropriate for your son, but
He's
maybe
actually
it is.
watching it with his dad.
His
dad is letting him watch it.
It's just scary is what it is. But one of the scenes in the last season is a Metallica song. So if nothing else, you can look for that. Yeah.
That episode.
It's like the final episode in the final season or something. You could probably YouTube it and find it, but it's awesome.
Enter Sandman is actually my go-to karaoke song.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's crazy.
It's hilarious.
There is a video circulating somewhere.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look for that. And we're audio only, but for those of you who are listening, I don't know. I don't know what I think metal looks like, but Eileen doesn't look like metal. So
I know. I never did. I was the fat girl at the Metallica concert.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Does your son like that kind of music too, or is he like into totally different? Yeah,
totally different.
My daughter, thankfully, has opted to be more on my side of things, and she'll like 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s music. And my husband's French, and he's wonderful, but he's got weird music choices. So, but okay. So, what's your favorite show right now? I know you said you're not watching Stranger Things, but what's your favorite show?
I don't watch a lot of TV and I don't have cable. So I have Netflix and Hulu. And so I watch the shows on there. But right now I'm actually rewatching Schitt's Creek.
I love that show. Oh
it's my favorite show. I just keep rewatching it because it's just hilarious.
Well, and it's funny because it's about money.
It is. I know. I know.
It's about money. Who's your favorite character if you have one?
I just love them all. I don't have a favorite. I love them all. They just, as a team, they're a team.
They are. I know, like the first 4 episodes I think I ever watched, I was like, who watches this show? And then I don't know, it's the
everybody
watching it, and then it ended, and I was crying, and I was like, I'm gonna miss my friends. And so anyway, that's probably TMI for all the listeners out there and for you. But
my middle name is TMI. It's okay.
We're soul sisters.
Right. I also just finished watching Downton Abbey. I know I'm a little late to the party, but I just finished it and I watched both movies.
I loved it, and my awesome, cool kid, 14-year-old, not only listens to 70s, 80s, and 90s music, but also just finished watching Downton Abbey, and also is on her way to finishing almost all of the Seinfeld episodes.
Wow. I love Seinfeld.
Summer vacation. This is what happens.
True story.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We'll have all of your ways of connecting with you, even though you've already said them. We want to make sure people know how to find you and listen to your awesome podcast and find you, maybe even work with you, and at least know what's possible for them to be free from the stories that they've been telling themselves, to maybe get a little passion for your purpose, which is money, and making money something that is used for good and used for something that is empowering for people, especially women and kids. So I love that. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This was amazing.
Awesome. Hey everybody, if you like this conversation and are looking to align your work and life with your purpose, or uncover your purpose in the first place, work with me. I coach people ready to uncover and appreciate their worth, make an impact, and find meaning and purpose in the work they do, whether that's personal or professional work. Get your mind right and make your plan for impact, and coach with me. Connect with me for 15 or 20 at the Calendly link in the show notes below and talk about coaching with me. Hey everybody, it's Melissa, And I'm wondering if you all can relate. Have you ever caught yourself procrastinating or maybe doubting your abilities? Or maybe you have a black belt inner critic like I do or have had that wants to sabotage your every move with judgment and perfectionism expectations. It might keep you stuck, it might keep you anxious and away from your full potential. The Positive Intelligence Program, PQ, is a powerful 6-week journey designed to help you quiet those saboteurs, embrace positivity, and find flow in your life. Through daily practices and weekly focuses, we'll work together to build your mental fitness. The PQ app will guide you every step of the way and support you, and you'll be supported either by myself in a one-on-one or in a small group of like-minded individuals where you can share insights and progress. So reach out, contact me at info@thefullymindful.com to find out how we can work together one-on-one or in a small group today.